Hey, FitMama, Jen Oliver here, your host of the FitMama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, and welcome, FitMama, to today's episode all about the benefits of orgasm. How to have more powerful orgasms. How many benefits can we name for masturbation? Yeah, today we are talking about all the goods, and it's amazing to me, but it's real. We don't talk about this enough. It took me years to talk about this topic, particularly female masturbation, particularly my own masturbation, and not while it's something everybody needs to talk about. Talking about it surely liberates us, and opening this conversation about pleasure, self-pleasure, pleasure with another, it really has shown to be so profound in the connections that my clients are making with themselves, this deeper, intimate connection. And it's actually starting from our sex. It's starting from our orgasms. It's starting from being comfortable in our own body. And, I think this takes us, especially as women, longer than we'd like it to. And I mean, I'm reminded right now of all those memes that go around of, how we used to think that we were fat, and only if back then we realized we weren't, because of how much we've gained now and how much we now think we're fat still, and how much, and how in our younger years, we're just all about trying to be skinnier. And now as we can get older, we're looking back and there's just all these different things that we get caught up in. And I really just want our pleasure to be the gateway for us to truly embody the love that we have for ourselves, the love and respect that we can have for ourselves that begins with our own pleasure, providing ourselves this pleasure. And firstly, before we can even get to that, is really saying to ourselves, hey, yeah, we deserve this pleasure, right? We deserve to go and feel this. And, there are so many benefits hormonally to having orgasms. I mean, oxytocin, and we know as moms, if we've ever read anything about oxytocin or learned anything about it, it's that bonding hormone. So we know a lot about it as moms, whether it's during pregnancy or postpartum. More particularly, oxytocin is very much related to our letdown response. Oxytocin is very much related to our uterine contractions during childbirth. Oxytocin is very much related to our bonding with baby and our other people that we love in our life, whether that's our wife, husband, partner, whatever the case may be. Oxytocin is very present. And when we orgasm, I remember this so clearly, and please write to me and tell me if this has happened to you, because this used to be just so funny to me. I remember when I was breastfeeding both times with my babies, and every time I would orgasm with my husband or by myself, my breasts would literally start shooting out milk, because it's the same hormone in that orgasm that is the letdown response. So when your baby is actually sucking on your breast, or you're pumping it and we wait for that letdown, then all of a sudden it lets down and the milk comes out. Oh, it feels really good. It is orgasmic. And when you're actually orgasming, unrelated to breastfeeding, your breasts will let down. Now, this doesn't always happen, and I spoke to many women who said this did not happen to them. So don't worry, there's nothing normal or abnormal either way. It's just a different response our bodies have. But this is all very much related, and I can't wait to go into a little bit more depth around some of these benefits that you can feel in addition to this hormone response, because sometimes we don't necessarily notice hormone responses in our body. And while there's many hormone benefits, such as the release of dopamine or serotonin in the brain due to orgasm, we can feel good due to that. And those are feel-good chemicals, and those come from other things as well and do get released during orgasm, and also not necessarily just in orgasm. As much as we put the emphasis on orgasm, you're going to be hearing me talk about it a lot today, it's not all about the orgasm. It can actually have so many of these hormonal benefits and mental mood benefits, other physical, mental, emotional benefits that are not even related necessarily to the orgasm. It's just the pleasure themselves, the pleasures, all the pleasures, whether it's in your mind and it's fantasy, or you're reading a novel or some kind of like erotic novel. My husband and I love reading erotic, I wouldn't say novels, I'll say stories, and we like short stories because we get really hot really fast, and we do not need a novel. We need like a one pager, and then we get really into it because it is hot. If you have not done this, this is a great part of foreplay, and you can get yourself pretty wet. I learned this the first time when I was actually driving. I remember I was commuting to school many, many years ago. This is over a decade ago now, and I remember I found a great channel on Sirius radio that I was listening to at that time, which was an erotic radio channel. It was like Playboy Radio or something. And they used to read these erotic stories on there. And OMG, I'm telling you, while I'm driving along, trust me, I'm not orgasming and I'm not touching myself. But let me tell you, by the time I would reach my husband, I would listen to these stories while I was driving there. I would get home. This was before we were even married. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm so wet right now, because erotic stories that get you into a fantasy in your mind can be incredibly orgasmic, non-orgasmic experiences. So I want to talk to you about having the benefits of orgasms without even necessarily orgasm. So just putting aside time for these endorphins to be released and these hormones to be released in your bloodstream, just through exploring self-pleasure. And maybe you don't have to admit this, but if even just hearing me talk about these things can make you a little bit wet, or just think a little bit differently, get you a little bit turned on, you are not alone. I too get turned on by talking about this. And the stress relieving benefits of even just thinking of erotic things. And my husband and I talk about this now more than ever because we are home together all of the time. And while normally we keep in pretty close touch when we're not together, i.e. in different cities or traveling for work or whatever the case is, we stay in touch through sexting and texting and a lot of intimacy. And the stress relief both of us have commented on through our work. And when we're working through the day, when we get a sext or text from each other and we get really excited to see that person's name pop up, and we just kind of get wet or get excited because we know it's going to be a sexy text, it's really a stress reliever in our day. And we're pulled away from the work that we're doing, perhaps, which can be a little bit, of a sort of unproductive thing, we might think. But gosh, the stress relief that both of us have noted and talked about that we feel when we are in that place of just taking a break and stimulating our minds and our maybe genitals in a different way. Again, without even touching them. This is pre-masturbation stuff. Like, this is the good stuff. So before we even have to get to orgasm, we can bring about these positive feelings and these stress relief and these benefits of hormones and chemicals and neurotransmitters before we even have to carve out the time to get into bed and touch ourselves, or have the time for a date night or intimate play experience in bed with our partner or whatever, because there are so many benefits in the pre. And you'll hear me talk a lot about sexting and texting and pre kind of foreplay things, but it's even during things which are really, really important. Because we have to realize that, like, not having this urgency around orgasms. And my husband and I have played with this a lot, and I play with this on my own as well, around not making the whole goal orgasm and not necessarily going for the orgasm right away. I know for us in sex, this has enhanced a lot, and I've talked about this in a previous podcast, but I'm even thinking just for ourselves with self-pleasure before going right to the orgasm, all that time before we come feels so good because it's leading up to it. So there's a lot of anticipation built. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of that feeling in our body of that going towards orgasm. But wow, does it feel good before we even get there? So before going into that orgasm or anything, thinking about playing with that on your own or with your partner, because that's a really fun thing, not making it all about the orgasm, especially even sex. Sometimes we think about it too much as in, hey, we're going to go have sex now. And we get there and we just start going through these robotic motions leading to orgasm, whether it's on your part, his part, her part, whoever's part. I've found for me, and my husband and I kind of laugh about this because it's, I think, so indulgent on my part, but I love it. And he caters to me, which is I get to have multiple orgasms before he even penetrates me, before we go towards him having an orgasm, before I give him a blowjob or cock worship. He gives me orgasms, whether it's orally or he fingers me or however we, whether I have my vibrator or there's multiple ways that I can get multiple orgasms before we even get to the sex part, before we even get to the P and the V part of it. Like there's so much exploration that can be done. And we're going to talk about this in a later episode around anal. And this is something that I've learned a lot about over the last probably decade, which I still am learning a lot about, and I'm always curious about, I'm curious about so many things, but this is one of those areas which we already play with and do a lot with and explore a lot with, and I still feel like we're just getting started. And orgasms play a role in all areas of different sex, and oral, anal, the P and the V style, penis and vagina, all the things. So I think there's just so many different types of orgasms as well. And we'll go into those a little bit later as well, but it's all the stuff leading up to it that's still so meaty and good. So I don't want to just 100% focus on the orgasms yet, because when you can make sex or intimacy or play time not about the orgasms, especially with a guy, and any guys listening, or your guy, they love their orgasms. My guy does too. But when we started playing with delaying his orgasms or us having sex, even P and the V style, and him not coming, and then us just ending, and maybe I've had 1, 2, 5 orgasms, and then we say, okay, we'll come back to him having an orgasm maybe tomorrow, maybe later tonight, maybe, whenever, the next day, the day after, and he still hasn't come for a few days, and we've had maybe sex 3 or 4 times in a span of a few days, and he still hasn't come. Let me tell you, this is some of the best sex we have ever had. Some of my best orgasms, especially orally, because he is hungrier than ever when he hasn't come. And it's interesting how he gets. And so I welcome you to play with this, because this is a lot of different fun things. So I'd say definitely play with delaying your orgasm, seeing how much foreplay can be erotic, and seeing how many health benefits and erotic pleasurable benefits you can come up with just through that. I know for me, I can just lie down with my husband and we can make out, or stand up and make out. We can do, we don't have to do anything sexual with clothing on. We can just do, wow, I can get into so much, which I won't get into here, but just looking at each other, basically, we can just get crazy now because we've had so much play with the anticipation side of things. So learn about your body. That's a key part of this. And whether you have a partner or don't, whether you have multiple partners or don't, it doesn't even matter. It matters most about your relationship with your body, your understanding of your pleasure, your understanding of what you do want, what you don't want, what you could be open to and you're willing to explore more. because that's the really fun part. So where are you curious? And I'd love for you to reach out or tag me online and tell me what you're curious about right now. Because if you haven't had orgasms lately, you are missing out. And I've talked to a lot of women who are feeling like this isn't a top priority for them, which I understand when there's a lot of other stuff going on. But the stress relief alone that you will gain from starting to look at your own pleasure as an option, as an outlet, as a tool, as instead of thinking I need to go for a run and get out of my house, you can just close yourself in the bathroom and read an erotic story or touch yourself or look at your hot self in the mirror. I have started to really love looking at my own body in a way that I never would have thought, even a few years ago, even 1 year ago. I have to seriously tell you this. I did not look at my body and think erotic thoughts about myself or feel sexy looking at myself. Even up till the last year, I will really honestly say that. And if you don't, and if you that rings true for you and you also look at your body and don't feel erotic and turned on, there is a way, because it does not actually matter in the slightest what your physical body looks like in the mirror. It more than matters what you see in the mirror. And if you've ever spoken negatively to yourself about your body, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And I encourage you to start thinking that there is a way and there is an opposite opportunity, which means you can look in the mirror and say, damn, I like what I see. I like what I see when I look in the mirror, and I am turned on by what I see. That is so beautiful. Hey, FitMama, I want to interrupt this episode just for a quick reminder to check out the Love FitMama Way. If you haven't already checked out the book online, it's available on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. It is a very comprehensive book for you where I explain how the transition into motherhood is a window of opportunity to transform the core of your being as a human and a leader. I go into detail about what you can do physically to rehabilitate your deep inner core after pregnancy and childbirth. It doesn't matter how many years postpartum. I emphasize that being a fit mama all starts with love, and what goes into the embrace, nurture, and enjoy framework as I outline this journey for you. Because it's all about transforming from the inside out, focusing within, not without. Cultivating those healthy habits that stick, that are for you, is what this new generation of fit mamas like you really want. I lay out and I dive into the FitMama foundations along with all the relevant tools, new ideas, recommendations, scientific backup, and intriguing perspectives that will leave you feeling empowered FitMama and determined to connect deeper with your own core. Regardless if you're male or female, with or without kids of your own, you will find this book thought-provoking and practical in moving you toward true love and reverence towards your body and your life. I guarantee it, FitMama. Reach out. Please let me know how you like the book. It's only $4.69 on Kindle, and you have a Kindle app for free on your phone. If you don't, grab a Kindle. They're awesome. You can read it right on your computer, though. And the paperback is only $24.95. I honestly know that it's worth it. It is over 10 years of research and pretty much 20 years of experience, plus my whole life. But it is a wealth of knowledge. And I know this makes a really, really great gift for any of those pregnant or new fit mamas out there. I guarantee you're going to feel a breath of fresh air from reading this book, and sharing it with your friends and family is giving love right to them. I talk all about healing your seal and doing the pearl pull-ups to bring yourself back into a place of equilibrium in your core, a nice connecting with your deep inner core, how to rehab, what it all means, and it's super, super clear and simple. So check out the book, get it on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. And back to the episode. Have a great day, Fit Mama. It's all about training yourself. And when we can give ourselves the time and space, and instead of those old ways of quickly glancing in a mirror, or after a shower, just drying down and putting your clothes on really quickly. It's instead taking a little bit of time and looking at yourself and changing the narrative from that old, negative, repetitive, over and over and over. I put myself down. I tell myself why I'm not good enough. I tell myself what I have to do, what I must do, what I should do. All those things. It's just a habit, and we can just change that old pattern into a new one that allows us to just feel good. And instead, when we look in the mirror and take that time and say, wow, what beautiful breasts you have, Jennifer. And I tell myself that. For me, I had a hang up about my breasts forever, ever. And it was like, I loved them because they felt so much. They were very sensitive. They always have been. They still are. They're the best in that way. So I love them, stimulating them, touching them by myself or during sex or with partners throughout the years. They've always been very positive. But whenever I looked at them in the mirror, I was disappointed, I guess is just the best way to say it. And they weren't big enough. They weren't this enough, whatever. Really, it was probably their size. That was more than anything. I just always thought, wow, I would love to have some big breasts, some big boobs. That'd be so cool. I really wanted them. And once I had babies and I got them because they were filled with milk and they were huge. And I was like, look, I'm got these gorgeous boobs. And you know what? It wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. I mean, obviously breastfeeding boobs are different. They're hard or painful or milking or whatever. But I grew an appreciation for my breasts during that time. And ever since then, they've come back down to size. Let's say their original A, if you can call them that. And I freaking love them. And I can now honestly look at myself. I can actually look down at myself while I'm masturbating. And this is very intimate. So thank you for being here for this. I can look down at myself and I can literally just see beauty. And it didn't happen overnight. It did take a really, really, really lot of practice of deciding that instead of that old narrative that I could go into, that neural pathway is still there after so many years of feeling inadequate for something that is so adequate and more than adequate. And we do this to ourselves. We look at our thighs, we look at our belly, it rolls or this or that, and we don't let ourselves feel the pleasure that is available to us because of these mind traps that we've literally fallen into, where we've decided at whatever capacity society has told us we're not good enough or we should do this, ways to get bigger boobs or whatever. And it's you know what? When we can love what we see in the mirror, when we can love what we see on our body, when we can love what we feel on our body, when we can be in our body and feel at home, like there's no attack going on, we attack our own bodies like there's a war against ourselves. And it just doesn't need to be that way. I have done it for too long. My clients have done it for too long. Countless FitMamas have done it for too long. And the benefits of orgasms, the benefits of masturbation, the benefits of looking in the mirror, pulling a mirror up, right up close to your vulva, to your yoni, to your vagina, sticking your fingers in there, getting other things that you want to stick in there. If it's a penis, that's fine. If it's not, that's fine. There is a journey that you can go on. Yoni eggs. There are different wands. I'm going to do an episode all about sex toys and different, just everything literally about yoni love and what you're going to be able to allow yourself to connect more with yourself by doing. And we've already been doing this here in FitMama for so long through meditation, through mindful awareness around our eating or around our exercise, movement, whatever that is to us, feeling good. Above all, honoring our needs, desires, asking ourselves what we need. And so often the answer doesn't come up with masturbation or orgasm, but we know the health benefits of orgasm are so many, so many. We know there are countless health benefits. Again, we talked about the neurotransmitters, we talked about the hormones, we talked about so many aspects physiologically, mentally, emotionally. We know that we have stress relief, as we mentioned. We know that while we're focused on pleasure, we aren't likely also focused on negative thinking or the bills that we have to worry about or other worries. We don't have to think about family. We don't get into those places because all of a sudden our clit is getting stimulated and maybe other parts of our body are getting turned on. And if you do a Google search of the anatomy of the clitoris, you will love this. And I'm a huge firm believer of anatomy, physical health education. And I'm really passionate about us understanding our anatomy and the clitoris, the clitoris, however you want to call it. This is a magical being, and there's over 8,000 nerve endings there, more than in a penis, on the head of a penis, where so much stimulation you think a man feels on his penis. How about what we feel? How about our bodies and how engorged they get? How good does that feel? If you've never felt yourself get engorged, if you've never felt your lips grow and become twice or 3 times as big and change color and start to get wet and moist and just start dripping. If you've never felt this with your own hand, if you've never looked at this in the mirror or taken a picture of yourself to look at, it's a magical experience. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when you can see the beauty of that, and you can embody that with true gratitude, with appreciation, that's where it begins. If we can appreciate our body for this, we get so many more mental and emotional health benefits because we start to connect, right? Connect with our actual selves, and not in that old way of negativity of you have to get up and go to the gym, run, or go do this and push. It's like if we can just revel in feeling in our fingertips the wetness created in our own bodies, potentially by none other than ourselves and our own fantasies, our own fingertips, it is fucking sexy. It is hot. It is awesome. And your body is capable of incredible things. And if you can start to notice new forms of pleasure. And I know for me, I've started to notice new forms of pleasure, even in the last year since moving. And when you move houses, you move cities, I moved countries, there's a lot of new to look at, to experience, and to indulge in. And one of the things I said when I moved to my new city where I am, which I love, I said, I'm not going to lose this new beginner's eye that I have. And I maintained with myself that I wanted, and I was willing every day to look with a beginner's mind, to look at the palm trees, to look at the blue skies, to look at the mountains, to look at all the beauty, the flowers, the different nature, cacti, desert landscape. I came from Canada. We don't have desert landscape there. So it's so beautiful. And the moon phases, I can see the moon, all all these things add to my fullness of my pleasure. And I'm letting myself indulge in these new beauties, seeing flowers and seeing their beauty in a way where I really just never let myself go there, because I was always on a mission, always doing something, always something was more important, where I had to be, what I had to do, what I had to achieve. And now, even just in masturbation or in sexy playtime with my man, I don't feel this need to be productive. I don't feel the need to be achieving. I don't feel the need to get somewhere. And my husband always says this line that I love, which is, we don't dance to get to the end of the dance floor. And sometimes when it comes to sex or orgasms or masturbating, we think that orgasm, that peak is going to be everything. And that's why we came. And that's really what we're focused on. But when we can take our eyes off that prize a little, just blur our vision and just allow ourselves to feel all the pleasure, all that leads up to the orgasm too, because there's so many bits of goodness leading up to the orgasm. I know for me, I was just telling a friend about this, about what I used to experience, and still do experience this, but I used to experience it before I even had sex, was this idea of a coregasm, which essentially I used to get at the gym. I used to do these ab exercises. I first experienced it when I was in gymnastics as a young one, when I was probably, I wasn't that young, maybe let's say 12 or 13. And I used to notice that when I did certain hanging moves on the bars, lifting my legs or flipping around in certain ways or doing certain ab exercises, that I would get orgasms, and I would have this intense buildup up to the orgasm. So I actually would be able to do all these ab workouts or like all these chin-ups and hold chin-up positions for a really long time, because I was super hyper motivated, because this was like the lead up to orgasm. And then ultimately I would have an orgasm from the inside, which now I term coregasm. And this was no external stimulation, no clitoral stimulation, no vaginal penetration, nothing like that. It was just this idea of a coregasm. So these are these exercise induced, when we add a little weight or even our own legs, these hanging abs I talk about on the Roman chair, which is very hot. You release these neurotransmitters, endorphins, and it's similar to orgasms. So it's really cool. Kind of like how you can wake up and have a wet dream. You don't necessarily need to stimulate yourself. That comes from, let's say, a fantasy or a dream. There's so many ways of arousing. Like, I learned this, and I love this, is I learned, like I was saying earlier, about my breasts and how sensitive they are, particularly my nipples and all around my nipples themselves, but my breasts in general, the entirety of them. And I just loved learning this about myself, that I could essentially feel an orgasm in my pelvis just from, at that time when I first learned about it, it wasn't from my own touching. I still felt a bit taboo about my own touching, but I could get it from someone else touching me or kissing my breasts, and I could orgasm just from that. And if I was touching myself or he or she was touching me at the same time, it felt really, really good. So just playing with yourself alone, of course, discovering what feels good. Maybe some anal play feels good. Maybe playing back around your anus where you never thought that was acceptable. Or maybe you just never thought you'd get pleasure from that, but you do, right? And maybe you discover that a butt plug feels really good, and your orgasms get even better when you have something up your anus. There is so much to discover, and we're going to talk more about this in so much detail, as you know, I will go into. But I just want to kind of keep opening up these conversations. I have some really exciting guests coming up on the podcast that I've been interviewing over the last week or so that I'm excited to get out there. The next month or two of podcast guests is sweet. It's on fire. It's so hot. It is going to be so good. I have some sex coaches. I have intimacy coaches. I have a vaginal weightlifter coming on here. Wait till. This is next level. She is the boss and you'll want to meet her. So stay tuned for all the goods here in FitMama. Share this episode with someone. Let yourself have more playtime. Know that the benefits of orgasm and self-pleasure and pleasure and play with a partner or partners it's all about discovery. It's all about curiosity. It's all about letting go of those old negative thought patterns, those old negative conversations, and notice when you're getting into them. I know for me, I had a lot around my body that it wasn't good enough. My boobs were too small, or my belly was too this, or my thighs were too that, and this wasn't good enough. And it's all bullshit. And I call bullshit on it because if you can feel pleasure, if you can let yourself feel pleasure. And I give thanks again to my husband who made me feel so sexy and still to this day makes me feel hot every day. He allowed me, and I say allowed me, choosing that word particularly, that he gave me a safe space. He created safety that allowed me to go on a journey of self-discovery. And you don't need permission, but if you do, this is your permission. I'm giving it to you now. Go on, my friend. FitMama, please yourself, pleasure yourself, and watch how in turn it changes things on such a deep level with yourself and your self-talk and your conversation and your ability to feel more love for yourself, more reverence and appreciation, more magnanimous, unconditional love that I talk about in How to Love Yourself to the Core, my TEDx talk, which is almost at about 800,000 views now, which I'm so super grateful for that message has spread globally in the way that it has. I'm so honored and just so grateful. So thank you for being here, FitMama. Go have some orgasms. Write me some messages about them. I've been getting some messages recently, mostly messages of thanks, but a few messages of, I tried this out, which was either worshiping cock or some of the other stuff I've been talking about at the Love FitMama YouTube channel for the sensual series. So check that out if you haven't and send me messages because I legit get tingly and wet in the day. Reading messages that other people are having some sexual satisfaction, that other people like you, FitMama, are getting a bit intimate with themselves and breaking down some barriers that they thought they had. And I say thought they had because we all think we have barriers until we don't, and then they no longer exist. And that is a fun place to explore as well. Thank you so much for being here, FitMama. I'm so grateful for you beyond every day for you and what you bring to this world of inspiration for me and all the Fit Mamas and your children and all the people in your world. I love you. Have a great day. Namaste.